Kyuma is a good-for-nothing, jobless reject who's roaming the streets and contemplating ending his miserable life. But that's until he is magically teleported to this strange world. And before he can figure out what the heck is happening, a massive, fearful griffin suddenly swoops in and carries him away. After crushing his insides with its sharp talons, the griffin dumps him like junk in the open field. As Kyuma struggles to open his eyes, he sees this strange girl running towards him, and when she gets closer, she tries communicating with him, but Kyuma doesn't understand the gibberish she is saying. So to make the moron understand, the strange girl uses her finger and touches his tongue. This disgusting act instantly opens the part of Kyuma's brain that can understand the rubbish she is saying. So now that they can both understand each other, the girl introduces herself as Panya and explains that he is in a different world. But then she tells him there is no way to return to his former world. Kyuma starts thinking about how he will adapt and survive in this mysterious place. But just like she is reading his thoughts, Panya tells him she has a job for him where he will receive free accommodation and free meals. So before even knowing the job description, Kyuma begs to work for her. With that, Panya takes him to a prison far inside the kingdom and then explains that the job is to be a prison guard like her. As she gives him a tour of the prison facility, Kyuma notices that the place is not as bad as he expected for a prison. So he promises to do his best, and to begin, Panya leaves to go get him registered. But while waiting for her, a cat beast girl approaches Kyuma and introduces herself as Gamey. But as Kyuma also introduces himself, the freaky cat girl suddenly pounces on him and explains that since it's a girls-only prison, she is sausage-starved and desperately in need of his Big D energy. Kyuma panics and begs that he wants to remain a virgin protagonist, but the Delulu girl takes off her couch fabric and starts clapping the innocence out of him. When she's done, she thanks him for servicing her punani and suddenly starts beating him with her sharp claws like he's a useless thief. However, in the middle of this brutal smackdown, Panya returns and is shocked at the craziness going on. Kyuma sees Panya and immediately starts begging her to save him from the witch, but Panya just stands there, terrified, refusing to get involved. Turns out, Panya is this crazy witch's lapdog and has been ordered by her to bring an unfortunate person for her sadistic enjoyment. Realizing he is helpless at this moment, Kyuma begs for his life and even offers to be Gamey's personal clapping dog for the rest of his life. But since Gamey is a smash-and-dump kind of baddie, she calls him a moron and rejects his offer. For even suggesting something like that, she squeezes the last bar of life out of Kyuma and then orders Panya to throw the idiot into the sea. Panya immediately obeys, and as she carries Kyuma's half-dead body on her back, she mercilessly throws him into the deep sea. As Kyuma's half-dead body hits the water, he starts drowning until he loses consciousness, but suddenly his body gets swallowed up by a massive creature. In the next moment, Kyuma finds himself standing by the seashore and is surprised, since by sane logic, he is supposed to be with his ancestors by now. However, before he can figure things out, a massive kraken suddenly emerges from the sea and introduces herself as Kurama. She explains that she is responsible for swallowing him up to protect his body, and that she also healed his wounds. But in exchange for all the good she did, Kurama says she wants Kyuma to help save a girl named Zaina. Kyuma is still completely shocked, unsure of how to respond, when Miss Kraken starts narrating her life story. She shares that when she was just born, she was very weak and fragile, so she was caught by humans. Since a kraken's body is extremely valuable and can be used to make legendary armor, the disgusting humans who kidnapped her were planning on slicing her up to get infinite materials for that purpose. Kurama says she was on the verge of being diced like beef, at that when the girl named Zaina helped her escape back into the ocean. But because of what she did, Zaina was imprisoned, and now Kurama declares that it is her turn to save her. However, the problem is that she is limited to the ocean and can't do anything on land, and that's why she wants Kyuma to fuse with her, so together they can save Zaina. When Kyuma asks what exactly she means by fuse, Kurama explains that with his body and her great power, he would be invincible. After hearing all this, Kyuma starts thinking. If fusing with Kurama will ensure he doesn't meet his maker anytime soon, Kyuma says he doesn't care and is ready to accept her condition. To show he is really ready, Kyuma loudly assures Kurama that he will do whatever it takes to save Zaina. Kurama tells him she is grateful, and then with a sudden burst of bright light, she fuses her essence with his. That night in the prison, Panya and Gami are feasting as they always do, when suddenly the man they thought would be fish food by now bursts in and coldly says he is there to thank them for earlier. Before Gami can say a word, Kyuma transforms into a terrifying Kraken knight, but Gami is confident in her claws. So as she charges at him to rip his throat out, Kyuma creates a water spear that slams her right in the stomach. She painfully starts to choke on her spit, but Kyuma doesn't stop. He unleashes his Kraken tentacles and wraps her with them. Then he starts squeezing her, determined to stop only when her melons pop. He tells her he is paying her back for stealing his virginity. But Gami, who is almost at the verge of passing out, reminds him that they both enjoyed the strafing. Even so, Kyuma keeps squeezing her like a wet towel until she's completely out of breath and collapses. Once that's over, Kyuma shifts his focus to Panya and then picks her up with his tentacles. He takes her to the edge of the cliff, ready to give her a taste of her own medicine, but Panya begs with everything in her, desperately promising to do whatever he wants. Still, Kyuma drops her into the ocean, but as she is about to hit the waves, he catches her by the legs with his tentacles and then asks if she is really serious about doing anything he wants. When Panya shouts that she is, Kyuma tells her to hire him properly this time as one of the prison guards. He also mentions that he wants to be in charge of the girl Zaina, as this is the only way he can fulfill his promise to the Kraken to save her. But when Panya shockingly reveals that Zaina has already been judged to be executed, Kyuma freezes in shock. Nevertheless, to begin his registration as a prison guard, Panya takes Kyuma to the prison warden Isis, who welcomes them politely. Turns out, news of Kyuma fusing with a Kraken has spread like wildfire around the prison, so Isis demands to see Kyuma's strength firsthand before they proceed. She calls in a guard to bring 2 female inmates, and then asks Kyuma to examine their necks. When Kyuma does, he sees seals on their necks, which Isis explains that she is responsible for putting the seals on them in case the prisoners try to escape. To demonstrate what the seal does, Isis activates it on one of the inmates, and her head suddenly pops like a champagne cork. When she activates the seal on the second inmate, the girl transforms into a freaky monster, which Isis orders Kyuma to defeat. However, to avoid looking like a heartless monster herself, Isis explains that the girls were murderers already sentenced to death. So as the monster approaches, Kyuma realizes there is no other way, so he transforms into his deadly Kraken Knight form and unleashes his tentacles at the creature. As his tentacles wrap around the beast, Kyuma squeezes until the monster's organs splatter like busted fruit. Isis is impressed that he annihilated such a strong beast like it's nothing. So she says, even though the prison is designed for female convicts only, she is ready to disregard caution and employ him as a male guard because he is special. Then she turns to Panya and tells her that because she allowed herself to become a prisoner's lapdog, she will be sentenced to death. But when Panya cries and begs for mercy, Isis says she will forgive her only because she brought in someone as strong as Kyuma. However, Isis says she will still punish Panya by appointing her as the prison guard for the 8 jail. As Panya leaves, Isis turns her attention to Kyuma and hands him 3 test tubes, explaining that to commence his enrollment, he will need to provide his saliva, his blood, and lastly his sausage cream. Seeing the disgust on Kyuma's face, Isis clarifies that she needs these fluids to investigate if there might be any adverse side effects from fusing with the Kraken. Reluctantly, Kyuma takes the test tubes, but as he excuses himself to go fill them up, Isis tells him there isn't enough time, so he needs to do it right there. Hesitantly, Kyuma agrees, so to begin, he fills the first tube with his saliva, and when he is clueless about how to draw out his blood, the crazy girl bites his hand like a vampire to make it easy for him. Then for his ball's juice, she gives him a little mouth service to fill up the last test tube. With the 3 tubes now filled, Isis thanks him for his cooperation, but then she says she is interested in knowing how he managed to fuse with a Kraken. Kyuma gets the feeling that being honest with Isis might be dangerous in the long run. So he lies, saying when he was earlier cast into the sea, he came into contact with a squid, and by the time he woke up, he realized he had Kraken powers. When Isis also asks why he is specifically requesting to be Zaina's prison guard, Kioma lies again that he happened to see her in the passageway and was charmed by her beauty. However, while he speaks, Isis walks to the window and tells him to look outside. When Kioma looks, he sees two female inmates fighting with real swords. Isis then explains that deadly fights like this are very common in the prison, where inmates fight to the death and spectators can also place bets on the outcome of the battles. She then informs him that Zaina will fight in that same arena in 2 days' time. However, she won't be going against a prisoner, but instead a ferocious beast known as the Great Saber Lion. Isis goes on to explain that this beast has already unalived 12 prisoners who were sentenced to death and remains undefeated. But when Kioma begs for Zaina's life, Isis tells him it's beyond her power since it is an order from the royal family. However, she says she can at least let him get close to Zaina before her execution. To do that, Isis appoints Kioma as the guard in charge of the 9th jail, which Zaina belongs to. When Kioma asks what a jail is, Isis explains that a jail is a group of prisoners, usually 6 in number. She says his job is to take care of all of them, but then warns that if he can't, he will be fired with immediate effect. As Kioma is given his prison guard uniform, he realizes he will be in charge of not only Zaina, but also other female inmates. So he plans that his first course of action will be to get information on all of them. To help, Panya, who had once been in charge of the 9th jail, gives him full documentation on all the female prisoners there. But she gives him one warning. She tells him that the 9th jail is mainly composed of quirky females and asks him to take care of himself. So later that day, when Kioma meets the female inmates of the 9th jail, he introduces himself as their new prison guard. Luckily, he sees Zaina as expected, which fuels his determination to save her. When it's time for introductions, the first member of the jail introduces herself as Mariam, while the elf girl among them introduces herself as Polina. After Zaina introduces herself, a girl named Carrot, who has the highest serving term of 999 years for mass murder, also introduces herself. But while Kioma is thinking about the unfair charges and long-serving terms some of the girls have, Carrot suddenly starts smiling at him like some deranged lunatic. Kioma immediately checks the big documentation book Panya gave him to know if Carrot is supposed to take any medication, but Carrot suddenly pounces on him and starts beating him up. But when the rest of the girls remind her she will be thrown into solitary confinement for beating up a prison guard, Carrot reluctantly stops, leaving Kioma lying helpless on the ground. The following day, Kioma resumes his prison guard duty by monitoring the cells of the inmates one after the other. But as he peeps into the cells to see what the girls are up to, he sees the girls sleeping carelessly with no clothes on, which freaks him out and makes him question if they are that dumb not to realize that their guard is a dude. Luckily, Zaina is the only one in her cell and has not yet been assigned a cellmate. So when Kioma peeps inside her cell to know what she is up to, he sees that she is meditating, but he panics when Zaina immediately catches him peeping and asks if he needs something. Figuring there's no need hiding anything from her anymore, Kioma replies that he has something important to discuss with her. As he enters her cell, he transforms into his Kraken form and then opens up, narrating everything that transpired between him and the Kraken. He assures her that he is her ally, and he is here to repay the debt the Kraken owes her. But first, he says he wants to know what led to her incarceration, and if she is really guilty of patricide like she was charged. Zaina admits the charge is false and then explains everything to him. She reveals that her father used to be a powerful swordsman of the kingdom, and ever since she was a girl, he had always trained her to be skilled with the sword. Even though the training her father gave her was harsh and severe, she was happy with it, because amid all the sternness, she could still see the love he had for her. But one day, when her father was mysteriously poisoned and died, every noble in the kingdom pointed accusing fingers at her, claiming she unalived her old man because she resented him for the harsh training. Even though Zaina had insisted she was innocent, the court declared her guilty and sent her to prison. But Zaina says she swore to find the culprit who murdered her father and make them face justice. When Kioma asks if she has anyone in mind who might be responsible for her dad's death, Zaina reveals that she is the current niece of the queen and has a right to the throne. Hearing this makes Kioma begin to think if this is some kind of plan from the royal family to prevent Zaina from getting a chance at the throne. So when he asks if she has ever thought of breaking out of the prison, Xina tells him escaping is not an option, and then reminds him of the seal Isis placed on every inmate that prevents them from ever leaving the prison. She also tells him that even if they manage to escape, they will be persecuted. She says the only choice she has now is to rely on her hands and continue winning her fights in the arena, since that will raise her rank as a prisoner. Xina explains that prisoners with high rank stand to enjoy certain freedoms within the prison and can even aim to get a drastic reduction on their sentence. Hearing this, Kyoma figures with this path she has chosen, they might actually stand a chance. So when he asks how she plans on winning her fight in 2 days' time, Xina says she plans on simply fighting head-on to beat the monster. But when Kyoma reminds her that the beast they are talking about has chewed up all its previous opponents, Xina angrily declares that she will never lose to some domesticated monster. Still, Kyoma is shocked at the level of confidence the girl has. So in 2 days' time, the day of the fight finally arrives, and Xina confidently steps out into the arena, which is packed with spectators eager for some action. As the announcer calls out Xina's opponent, the fearful-looking great saber lion steps out, ready to feast on its unfortunate opponent and use their bones as toothpick. So while Isis is watching from her high seat expecting the fight to end in seconds, some strange assassin is also in the crowd hoping Xina never leaves the arena alive. Meanwhile, Kyoma is alert, thinking about the special power he just unlocked a few days ago that can shoot ink in both liquid and gaseous form. With this new power of his, he plans to create a smoke screen and enter the arena to defeat the beast himself, if by any chance things go south. But the moment the announcer declares the start of the match and the beast charges at Xina to shred her to pieces, Xina calmly raises her sword, and with the speed of lightning, she slices the saber lion in half, leaving everyone in shock. She wins the duel in one strike, and while Isis is surprised at her impressive win, the cloaked assassin in the crowd is fuming with anger. So later that night, the assassin breaks into the prison to do the job the useless scam of a lion could not do. But unfortunately, Kyoma is already transformed into his Kraken Knight form and waiting for the idiot. So once Kyoma sets eyes on him, he moves at the speed of flash and slashes his throat. Then he shows Xina the dead assassin, and when he asks if she knows the weak loser, Xina says she doesn't know the moron. Kyoma then informs her that the dude is an assassin sent to take her out, and as he warns her to be careful, Xina insists she can protect herself just fine. Still, Kyoma advises she won't last long if she continues to endlessly wear herself out. However, he promises to protect her and then leaves, saying he would have to report the wannabe assassin to Isis. But as he walks away, Xina gets emotional remembering his promise to protect her, since this is actually the first time anyone has ever said something like that to her. On the other hand, while heading to Isis' office, Kyoma now understands that the only way to save Xina is to ensure she continues to win in the arena. The next day, while patrolling the cell corridor, Kyoma hears a clang on the cell gate. When he gets closer, he notices that it's Polina asking to see him for a minute. She shows him a list of plants she needs for her science experiment and then tells him to get them for her. But after Kyoma goes through the list, he sees that the nutcase is asking him to get an insane number of plants, so he tells her the errand would cost her. But Polina immediately lifts her skirt, shows him her rump, and tells him that would be his payment. The useless simp doesn't argue. He just takes a mental image of her dump truck and then leaves, promising to bring the plants for her later that evening. However, while heading back to the office, Xina shouts his name to get his attention and then gives him a piece of paper. When Kyoma looks at the paper, he sees an ugly dude who looks like a hard criminal. So when he asks Xina who the bacteria face is, she tells him he's the one and then explains that it's a gift from her. Kyoma reluctantly thanks her for the ugly mugshot, but as he does, he notices how much his thanks makes Xina smile. But just as he is about to leave, Xina stops him and then asks if he is going to the arena that day. This question makes Kyoma remember that he is supposed to accompany Mariam to her fight later that day. So a few hours later at the arena, Mariam faces off against a girl named Litang. As the fight starts, Mariam rushes toward her opponent, hoping to get a quick win, but Litang remains calm while studying her every move. But as Mariam rushes in swinging punches left and right, Litang parries every punch and then slams her to the ground. But this isn't enough to put the crackhead down, because she keeps attacking with intense aggression. So when Lidang now decides to use her power known as Thread Skill, Mariam also activates her own power called Wheel Skill. They both unleash their abilities against each other, but Mariam gets too confident. Just when she thinks she has the match won, Lidang flips the script and traps her by the neck with her thread. With that move, she slams Mariam to the ground and wins the fight with almost no effort. After the match later on, while in the training ground, Mariam is furious that she got beaten like a rookie. She swears she will win her next match, but Kyuma isn't sure she has what it takes to pull it off. He tells her she's too hot-headed and that she could have one if she had fought more calmly. When he adds that even he could defeat her in seconds, Mariam felt insulted and immediately warns him not to get cocky just because prisoners are forbidden on laying hands on the wardens. However, when Kyuma gives her the permission to attack, Mariam vows to make him cry like an infant and shred his uniform to pieces. Without hesitation, she leaps at him midair, ready to make good on her promise, but Kyuma can already see the flaws in her movements. So as he transforms into his Kraken knight armor, he unleashes his tentacles around her to restrain her arms and legs. Embarrassed, Mariam is shocked to learn that both his arms and legs can transform into tentacles. But Kyuma declares himself the winner of the match, and since Mariam had earlier vowed to rip his clothes, Kyuma coldly decides to do the same to her. So with his tentacles, he takes off her clothes and punishes her for being arrogant. Later that day, Kyuma notices that Mariam is still embarrassed by what happened earlier and is keeping her distance from him. However, he still tries to advise her to stop her stupid habit of rushing at her opponents. But when Mariam tells him that's the only way she knows how to fight, Kyuma starts thinking of a solution to her problem. So hours later, when his pea-sized brain finally thinks of an idea, he tells Mariam that he can help her, but it would require them to use his squid powers. Mariam excitedly shows interest, but Kyuma warns that what they are about to do might require her to endure some embarrassing moments. Still, Mariam insists she is ready and would do whatever is necessary. The following week, Carrot wins her match in the arena, while Zyna continues her winning streak in impressive fashion. But while all the girls of the 9th jail are doing quite well in the arena, Mariam is the only one who is totally worthless and has been having consistent defeats. To assist with her impulsive battle technique, Kyuma allows Mariam to drink the squid-like slime from his tentacles. Based on research, Kyuma discovered that the squid fluid contains a chemical that helps to relax the nerves of the body. So after taking a daily dose of this chemical for days now, Mariam is confident that she can win her next match. She shares with Kyuma that her best friend is waiting for her outside, so she has to do everything to leave the prison as soon as possible. But according to her criminal record, she was sentenced to 10 years for assault. When Kyuma asks how she got charged with assault, Mariam confesses that the only thing she did was beat the crap out of a noble that made fun of her friend. This reason makes Kyuma laugh, and he tells her that knowing her story has made him fond of her. The next day in the arena, Mariam is fighting against a blonde, but this time she is unusually calm, thanks to all the slimy fluid she's been throating lately. So when the match starts, her opponent activates her ability known as Ball Skills. That lets her magically create black spiky steel balls with her hands. When she shoots these steel balls at Mariam, Mariam calmly counters them using her Wheel Skill. But at the slightest opportunity, Mariam swoops in aggressively and lands a spear on her opponent, knocking her unconscious instantly. For the first time in a very long while, Mariam wins her fight and she is beyond excited, while Kyuma is proud to see that she was able to keep calm all through the fight. So at night, Mariam thanks Kyuma for his help. But when Kyuma suggests she stops choking herself with his slimy squid juice for the meantime until her next fight, the junkie desperately refuses, begging that she can't calm down anymore unless she eats some squid. Kyuma tries explaining that transforming into a squid arouses him. Meanwhile, inside the royal palace, the second princess, Farida, receives a visit from Isis, the prison warden. Isis shows her the assassin that was caught by Kyuma, who now looks more like a Halloween doll than a human. When Princess Farida pretends not to know what the heck is going on, Isis explains who the guy is, and then asks the assassin in the presence of the princess to reveal who hired him. When the assassin says he was hired by a subordinate of Princess Farida, Farida pretends to be shocked to hear this. However, the dude goes on to explain that because Zaina, who is pretty good in military arts, has become the favorite for the succession of the throne, Farida wants to take the throne by all means, even if it means unaliving Zaina to do so. But after hearing this, Farida claims the dude is spitting trash, explaining that she never thought of something that preposterous. So since she's done questioning, Isis places the tiny assassin on the table and leaves, letting Farida deal with it however she wants. But while inside a carriage, heading back to the prison, Isis is 100% certain the scum of a princess is capping, and is surely interested in taking the throne. However, she couldn't care less since she also has a hidden agenda she wants to accomplish. At the same time, back in the prison, Kyuma decides to ask the silly question every simp asks after that kind of activity. When he asks what they are now, Mariam instantly gets pissed and warns him to forget everything that happened between them. She shuts the door on his stupid face, angrily reminding him that nothing has changed. He remains the guard and she remains the prisoner. Meanwhile, at the palace, Farida holds the mini assassin and is extremely furious over the idiot's failure to take out Zaina. So she angrily tosses him into the ocean for the crocodiles to feast on, and decides it would be best to engage the services of the three Kusa brothers to handle Zaina once and for all. The following day in the prison, Kyuma notices the girls gawking at a notice on the wall. Curious, he gets closer, and as he asks what they are staring at, Polina tells him it's a notice recruiting members to investigate a newly discovered tavern. In this prison, cavern investigations and monster exterminations are part of their penal labor, and prisoners can increase their rank only if they deliver good results. So when Kyuma asks Polina if she intends to investigate the cavern, she replies that cavern exploration is what she loves doing most, rather than fighting meatheads in the arena. Hearing this, the rest of the girls announce that they will be going too. Mariam says she doesn't mind, since she still has some free time until her next match, while Zaina explains that she wants to add cavern investigation to her achievements. But when Kyuma asks Carrot if she will also accompany them, Carrot says nope, explaining that she would rather clash with opponents in the arena. Unsure about what prison guards are supposed to do in these situations, Kyuma later asks Isis, who tells him he has to accompany the prisoners outside the prison for the task. When he asks if it's really okay for the prisoners to go outside, Isis explains that even outdoors, the seals she placed on the prisoners remain active. However, since this is Kyuma's first outing with the prisoners, Isis says she will assign another guard to go with him. So without being asked, Panya immediately volunteers to accompany him. Later that day, Kyuma and Panya accompany the girls to the cavern, unaware that an assassin sent to take out Zaina is lurking in the shadows, observing. When they finally arrive, Polina mentions that she's going to map out the structure of the cave and instructs the rest of the girls to gather useful insects and plants. But before they start any gathering, Kyuma warns Zaina to be careful, and Zaina starts blushing seeing how much the guy cares about her safety. But Zaina's intense blushing while talking to Kyuma makes Mariam boil with jealousy. As the girls begin their task, they gather rare plants and insects, with even Kyuma helping out to collect giant mushrooms. When Polina pulls out a strange bag that swallows the mushrooms in one go, Kyuma is surprised. So she explains that the bag is made from monster materials and is called the Instantaneous Movement Device. Polina then shares that her lifelong dream is to invent something on par with the instantaneous bag. She reveals that before her arrest, she was a mad scientist with her own laboratory, but one of her Frankenstein experiments caused her lab to explode. She says her dream is to create something great one day, which is why she must do whatever it takes to leave the prison. So after gathering all the materials they need in that area, Mariam suggests they head deeper into the cavern. They all agree, and as they move further inside, Kyuma feels a bit relieved that they haven't encountered any monsters yet. But suddenly, out of nowhere, an assassin stabs Kyuma in the chest with a sharp blade. Zaina is shocked to see him coughing up blood, but before she can react, another assassin teleports out of the blue and slashes her back. When Polina tries to toss a recovery pill to Zaina, she too is stabbed in the chest. With the entire crew incapacitated, the assassins reveal themselves: Saukaku, Hud, and Yakin, the three Kusa brothers. Among all the villains in the country, These brothers are among the top 3 with the highest bounties on their heads. Pointing his blade at Zaina, Saukaku, the tribal chief of the brothers, declares that they will be taking her head, but despite her injuries, Zaina remains determined never to be defeated in the cavern. However, when Panya starts groveling like a pig and tries to beg for her life, Yakin smashes her head into the hard ground, spewing blood everywhere. But Saukaku tells his feline brother to chill, saying finishing Zaina comes first before anyone else. So the 3 assassin brothers ready themselves to attack Zaina in one go. Meanwhile, after getting her head smashed like a melon, Panya still manages to survive, but this time she uses her senses and chooses to play dead. On the other hand, Polina struggles, dragging her wounded body toward Kyuma. When she gets close to where Kyuma is lying unconscious, she tries waking him up, desperately reminding him this is the time he needs to go full Kraken mode. So the instant Zaina gets surrounded by the Kusa brothers, a sudden burst of light erupts, and out of this blinding light Kyuma emerges, donning his Kraken armor. As the Kusa brothers wonder who this low-budget dark mayhem is, Zaina is beyond excited to see Kyuma alive. Before attacking, Kyuma tells Yakin that he will be the first to go down. But when he charges, he suddenly switches direction and goes for Hud instead. However, in Hud's head, he laughs, confident that his power to make his opponent sleep will be enough to win. What he didn't expect was for Kyuma to create a blinding flash of light as he gets close, making it impossible for the brothers to see. With their vision now cooked, Kyuma takes advantage and punches Hud's nerdy face with his powerful fist, sending the sore loser crashing into the wall. But in that split second, Saukaku ignores his eyes and, using pure mental instinct, manages to slash Kyuma in the back. But when Kyuma survives the slash, Saukaku brags that the fight is already in their favor since it's 2 against 1. However, Kyuma corrects the pompous fool that he is Delulu and that the fight is only between the both of them. Confused by that statement, Saukaku turns to look at his cat brother and is shocked to see that he is stabbed and already on his way to meet his maker. Kyuma then explains that he not only punched Hud's ugly face, but also stole his knife with his tentacles, since at the beginning he said he would go after Yakin first. Furious at the death of his brothers in arms, Saukaku angrily declares that a useless squid can never defeat a trained swordsman like him. But just after he says these words, the ground of the cavern starts to break apart until the entire footing crumbles. As a result, both Kyuma and the assassin start to descend into the underground lake just below them. Realizing it would be dangerous to fight in the water with a Kraken man, Saukaku decides to cut Kyuma to pieces before they hit the water. So as he propels forward toward Kyuma, ready to attack, Kyuma lets him know he has him right where he wants him. So with one swift motion, Kyuma wipes his face with his tentacles and binds him with those same tentacles as soon as they hit the water. Just as Saukaku starts to sink and black out, Kyuma coldly reminds the failed assassin that it's impossible for a swordsman to best a squid in water. When the chaos finally settles, Kyuma coils his tentacles around the girls and carries them to where the rescue team would find them. By bringing the 3 Kusa brothers to justice, Polina earned a 4-year cut from her 7-year sentence, since she was the one in charge of the exploration. However, when Kyuma reminds her that he helped greatly to make it possible, the pretty elf girl shyly asks if he wants some kind of reward or something. Though in her head she already knows the freaky psycho would love nothing more than to pop her cherry. But at first, Kyuma blows her mind when he claims he was just kidding, explaining that protecting the prisoners is part of his job. However, when the disgusting creep takes a look at her dirty pillows, he immediately begs for a reward, even if it's small. So as a reward, Polina lets him fondle her muffins all he wants. Later that day, in the warden's office, Isis commends Kyuma for his impressive performance during the exploration. To reward his bravery, she gives him a box as a present, and when Kyuma opens it, he is surprised to see 3 tubes inside. Isis then instructs him to hold the tubes up high, and when Kyuma obeys, a sudden gas escapes from them, filling the entire room. In the midst of the strange gas, Kyuma is shocked to see the 3 Kusa brothers he just defeated. When he asks what the heck is happening, Isis explains that the brothers have sworn their loyalty to her in exchange for their lives. Saukaku, the master swordsman, Hud, an erudite sleeping art user, and Yakin, the nimble assassin, have all been engraved with seals on their bodies to serve as slaves to Isis. However, Isis tells Kyoma to use them as he pleases, but advises him to make the most of them by making them stronger. Though deep down, Isis is biding her time patiently before truly revealing her ulterior motive. The following morning, Kyoma arranges the girls in orderly fashion for breakfast. How bountiful breakfast is in this prison is based on the rank of the prisoner. For a rank A prisoner like Carrot, she gets to eat like a queen. For rank Bs like Mariam and Polina, their meal is manageable, but for a rank C like Zaina, she gets to eat like a pauper. So when Kyoma questions why her food is so little, Zaina explains that she just has to endure it for now, and assures him that she will do her best to rank higher in the arena. Still, Kyoma isn't pleased with the little rations she was given, and seeing how much he cares for her makes Zaina blush. However, when Carrot mentions that food can also be bought with money, Kyoma starts thinking about where he could get cash from, since he's broke and his guard's salary can barely buy a candy. But right then, a solution shows up when Panya walks over to him and mentions that she wants to introduce him to someone. As Kyoma follows her, she takes him to meet Litang, the same inmate that once battled Mariam in the arena. But when Panya explains that Litang wants to pay to have a taste of his sausage, Kyoma is shocked. When he calms down, he asks Panya if Isis won't be pissed if guards start piping inmates. However, Panya tells him that the exchange of bodies has long existed in the prison, and Isis mostly turns a blind eye to things like that so long as it doesn't affect the normal operation of the prison. Just then, Litang finally speaks up, sadly explaining that she is A rank, but she is having difficulties leveling up to S rank. She adds that one of her teachers once told her that her problem is that she's too hard-headed, so she needs a guy to choke her with his meat. Panya interrupts, telling Kyoma that he is that guy, and Kyoma agrees, as long as there's money involved. But Litang asks him to hold up a sec, and then says she doesn't just want any cheery loser to make her knees tremble. She needs a guy that is oozing aura. When Kyoma asks if what she is saying is that she wants him to show his power, Litang smirks and says yes. So without wasting time, Kyoma immediately transforms into his Kraken armor in a burst of lightning. Seeing this, Litang freaks out, but when she finally regains her composure, she readies herself for a fight. As she creates an invisible barrier using her deadly webs, she warns Kyoma that he would be cut into pieces if he tries to move carelessly. But suddenly, Kyoma fires his ink straight at her webs, making them visible. Now that the obvious gaps in her thread can be seen, Kyoma manages to wrap her in his tentacles. So when he asks if she is convinced now, Litang stammers yes. With the business terms now settled, Panya heads out, telling them to enjoy themselves while she celebrates the commission she just earned as a pimp. The following day, Panya brings another pimp business for Kyoma again, but this time, she wants him to oil the rusty engine of a muscle mommy. But Kyoma panics and immediately declines to clap the ogre. However, with the money Kyoma received playing Gigolo the night before, he buys a decent meal for Zaina, surprising her. When she asks why he would go to such lengths, Kyoma tells her that she can pay him back when she finally leaves the prison. This makes Zaina blush hard, and she sincerely thanks him. The following week, Zaina battled against the girl with the spiky ball powers named Nelly in the arena. Nelly didn't waste a second before attacking Zaina with her spiky metal balls, confident she could win in minutes. But she is shocked when Zaina deflects her balls with just the backlash of the wind from her sword. But before she can prepare for another attack, Zaina charges straight at her, slicing her gut into two and winning the duel. This win increases Zaina's undefeated streak to 3, making her one of the cheering crowd favorite. So while the medic team attend to Nelly, Zaina walks out of the arena. However, on the way she tells Kyoma that she wants her next match ASAP, and Kyoma promises to inform the warden of her demand. But after hearing Zaina's demands, Isis immediately declines to accelerate her match. She explains that changes in the match program are not requests a lowly prisoner can make. When Kyoma keeps begging, Isis reconsiders and tells him she is too busy to carry out such a request, but then directs him to go ask the chief prison guard. But when Kyoma asks Gasson, the croc-faced chief guard, Gasson says only S ranks or elite A ranks can set their own match dates. So since Zaina is yet to reach A rank, she'll have to wait until she does. But just as he's about to leave, Gasson pats Kyoma on the shoulder and tells him to find him if he ever needs something. Seeing how kind the big guy is surprises Kyoma, so he thanks him. Meanwhile at the arena, Xina is pushing herself, training intensely even though she just finished a match a few minutes ago. The rest of the girls, however, are in the mood to have some fun. So Miriam suggests they all play cards and asks Xina if she wants to join them. But when Xina declines, Miriam continues to insist that she take a break and join them, even offering to teach her the rules if that's the problem. But Xina refuses again, saying she doesn't want to get too attached to any of them, and then suddenly yells at Miriam to leave her the heck alone. Her sudden outburst and behavior surprises the girls, but then they stop bothering her and then leave. But while they play cards in the cell, Miriam is pissed at Xina's rude behavior. And even Polina feels that Xina is acting extra sassy just because she's royalty, while the rest of them are nobodies. But after Kyoma listens to the girls' frustration, he assures them that Xina might have her own reasons for her mean girl attitude towards them. He begs them to be patient with Xina, and then thinks of a plan to find out why Xina is acting all cold towards her friends. So later that evening, Kyoma invites Xina to the rooftop. When he demands to know what happened between her and the other girls, Xina breaks down and finally opens up about how she feels. She reminds Kyoma about the assassins who attacked them a few days ago in the cavern and suspects that she must have been the target. She feels guilty for dragging the other girls into her mess, so she decided to keep her distance. But just then, the girls reveal themselves after overhearing everything Xina said. Xina is surprised to see them, but after admitting she was being honest, Miriam slaps her on the back and calls her a dummy. Miriam reminds her that they're all in the same jail, so even if she keeps her distance, they'll still get involved. But when Xina keeps insisting how risky it is, Miriam argues that it would be safer for them to work together as a team. Polina also joins in, saying they might even stand a chance to get a huge sentence reduction if they capture the assassins. Their words finally sink in, so Xina swallows her pride, apologizes for being difficult, and then asks Miriam to teach her how to play cards. Seeing the girls finally drop their pointless drama and get back together makes Kyoma smile in satisfaction. So later that evening, in Xina's cell, Kyoma transforms into his Kraken armor just to give Xina a massage after training so hard. So while massaging her plots, he also asks her to drink the slimy extract from his squid tentacles. This slimy fluid has been proven by the Plot-Loving Manga Viewers Association to be rich in taurine, which helps in accelerating recovery from fatigue. As Kyoma continues massaging her, Xina reflects on how kind he's been and how much he's violated her safe zones these past days. This makes her feel like she now has to marry him. That night, Kyoma accompanies Polina to the prison farm to check on the flowers she uses for her experiments. Suddenly, when Kyoma glances at the shining full moon, he notices something flying toward them that looks like a bird. When he squints his eyes to see clearly, he realizes it's no bird but a giant griffin which later lands right in the middle of the farm. Kyoma immediately assumes the griffin must be one of the assassins sent to terminate Xina, so he transforms into his Kraken armor, ready to defend her. However, to his surprise, the griffin speaks, introducing itself as a griffin man, and then reveals that he is also a human that can transform into a beast like him. Kyoma is shocked, but as he swears never to let him take Xina, the griffin man explains that Xina was never his target. It was Kyoma. As they clash fiercely, the Birdman reveals that his mission is to defeat Kyoma so no one is left to protect Xina. But as Kyoma attacks with everything he has, the Griffin Man proves stronger and nearly impossible to beat. Realizing how strong Kyoma is, the Griffin Man takes off into the sky and begins firing feather bullets straight at him. At one point, Kyoma considers releasing the 3 Kusa brothers from their tubes, but before he can act, the Griffin Man drops from the sky at lightning speed and smashes him into the dirt. Seeing Kyoma get crushed, Polina tries to help with her powers, but with the Beastmen so close to each other, it's too risky to unleash them. Feeling helpless, she starts imagining the freaky things the Griffin Man might do to her if Kyoma eventually loses. So to ensure Kyoma doesn't lose, she cheers him on, urging him to pull himself together, and even promises to let him smash later if he wins. Hearing this tempting promise ignites Kyoma's determination, and he manages to break free from the Griffin man's grip. Harnessing the Kraken's spiritual force in water, Kyuma uses it for flight, and as he takes to the sky, the Griffin man gives chase, ready to end him. So they clash midair, trading blow after blow, until the Griffin man realizes he's out of time and energy. So he promises to return, warning Kyuma that next time he'll make squid skewers out of him. Once the bird menace leaves, Kyuma falls to his knees, exhausted. As he recalls the word of the Griffin man, Kyuma realizes he lacks both strength and battle experience to protect Zeina at the moment, so he figures he must do something drastic to change it. But first, Kyuma reports everything that transpired with the Griffin man to Isis. So when he tells her they need to address the matter urgently, Isis calmly reminds him of his Kraken powers and the 3 Kusa brothers she entrusted to him. She then orders him to handle the situation himself, warning that the next time the Griffin man or any other assassin shows up, he must finish them off without fail. Kyuma nods, so to get stronger he heads to the outskirt of the farm that very night and releases the Kusa brothers from their tubes. When the nerdy one, Hud, demands to know what he would like them to do, Kyuma narrates the fight between him and the Griffin man and then says he wants to get stronger. He asks that they train him, but Hud refuses, suggesting instead that Kyuma simply release them as soon as the Birdman appears so they can beat him blue-black. But Kyuma insists he wants them to train him and also informs them that he had discussed with Isis about it. Let's rewind a bit back to when the 3 Kusa brothers were first captured. On that day, Isis had sentenced all of 3 brothers to death, but then she reconsiders and decides to let only Saukaku live so she can use his sword skill. She tells Saukaku that she is willing to hire him as her subordinate only if he pledges his loyalty to him. But Saukaku refuses, saying he would only accept her offer on the condition that she also hires his brothers. But when Isis disagrees, Saukaku challenges her to go ahead and unalive all of them if she doesn't like his offer. Seeing the seriousness on his face, Isis complains of the stupid bromance they share, but ultimately agrees to hire the 3 of them. Back in the present, Hud coldly asks Kyuma if he can mercilessly unalive someone. When Kyuma hesitates to provide an answer, Saukaku advises that he first needs to adapt to the morals of the beast world, which means hunting and learning to annihilate large numbers of beasts. Hud adds that Kyuma also needs to experience life and death battles firsthand. Finally, Yakin points out that since the kingdom allows polygamy, Kyuma needs to insert his junk into as many trunks as possible. The brothers collectively stress that he must embrace all of this if he truly wants to grow stronger and protect Zeina. When Kyuma agrees to do all that they ask of him, Saukaku says they can now begin the training and then instructs Kyuma to transform into his squid form. After training all through the night, Polina gives Kyuma some of her medicinal herbs to ease his body pains. But then she urges Kyuma to make sure he defeats and catches the Griffin man next time, so she might get another reduction in her sentence. To tempt him, she displays her huge cannons and promises to reward him generously if he manages to pull it off. But while staring at her yeasty milk bags, Kyuma instantly remembers the Kusa brothers advised to devour as many cheeks as possible. So he immediately grabs Polina, pushes her to the bed, and claps all night. Before long, Gasson delivers a box of gold from Princess Farida to Isis, along with an envelope containing the princess's request. Later, while in the bathtub, Isis opens the letter and learns that the princess is asking her to fix a match between Zeina and an A-rank prisoner named Asel. Isis, being a clever witch, immediately suspects this is another one of the princess's schemes to get rid of Zeina, but then she is confused whether to permit the fight or not. Meanwhile, in the cell, Polina and Kyuma decide to have a quickie before Kyuma starts his guard duty for the day. So after the clapping session, Kyuma dresses up, but just as he is about to leave, Polina stops him and then helps him adjust his tie like a caring girlfriend would. However, seeing this makes Mariam boil with jealousy. The following week, Zeina secures her 4th consecutive victory, and the crowd goes wild. But Isis quickly silences everyone, announcing that management has scheduled a match between Zeina and Asel, an A-ranker. She explains that since Zeina has always wanted to rank up quickly, this is her chance, and if she wins, management will even consider giving her a match against an S-ranker. However, Isis notes that the match can only happen if Zeina herself gives her consent. Upon hearing this announcement, the crowd erupts into whispers, with everyone questioning whether Xina is experienced enough to face an A-rank fighter. Even Gasson, standing beside Isis, doubts Xina's chances against a strong and bloody opponent like Acel. But to everyone's shock, Xina accepts the challenge and declares that no matter who she faces, she will win. However, to ensure she pulls it off, Xina is back to training the next day while Kyuma keeps an eye on her. When Kyuma asks if there's anything she wants him to do to help her win, Xina tells him that all she wants is for him to cheer her on. Kyuma promises he will, but when he gets back inside the facility, he starts thinking of other ways to help apart from cheering like some useless cheerleader. After thinking for a while, Kyuma gets a brilliant idea to help Xina prepare for the fight by making her get used to the strength of A-rankers. To do that, he meets up with Carrot, the only A-rank fighter in the 9th jail, and tries convincing her to spar with Xina. But when Carrot refuses, saying she's not in the mood, Kyuma continues to pester her, begging her to reconsider. His stubborn insistence pisses Carrot to the max, so she immediately wraps her leg around his neck and chokes him to sleep. So later that day, when Kyuma regains consciousness, he visits Polina in her cell and explains the difficult situation with Carrot. To help, Polina decides to tell him everything she knows about Carrot. She reveals that when Carrot was just a little girl, a criminal organization that gathers brats with exceptional abilities kidnapped her and trained her to be an assassin. Since Carrot already had outstanding fighting talent, she received special treatment within the organization. But within a year, the criminal organization got erased from existence and Carrot got arrested. However, even behind bars, the menace still vowed to be the arena's top fighter. After listening to Carrot's twisted childhood trauma, Kyuma figures he can weaponize it to persuade her again. So hours later, he goes back to her cell, asking if she wants to play with him. But Carrot refuses, saying she is not in the mood to see his disgusting face. But after a while, she finally vents that her frustration is that her favorite manga ended just when it was getting really good. Upon hearing this, Kyuma sees this as his perfect opportunity to manipulate her into agreeing. So he asks to see the manga she is reading, and after he goes through it, he realizes that the manga is nothing but a ripoff of a manga he has read back on Earth. So when he promises to tell her everything that happened later in the manga, Carrot gets all excited and agrees to spar with Xina. So later that evening, Carrot shows up in the arena, armed with her weapon and ready to face Xina. But then she gets distracted when she sees crabs on the floor and starts smashing them to death. But Kyuma stops the idiot immediately, warning her to refrain from the senseless behavior. Just then, Xina arrives at the arena armed with her sword and ready for the spar. However, before they start, she thanks Carrot for helping, while Carrot promises to show her what a top-class fight looks like. So as both girls clash, Kyuma watches the duel and starts thinking of what other ways he can ensure Xina wins her upcoming fight. After his little brain session, he figures his next plan would be to gather as much intel about Xina's opponent that he can utilize. Meanwhile, in the prison visiting room, a shady transaction is underway, with someone handing a sack of gold coins to a fighter in exchange for making sure Xina gets erased during the match. Turns out it's Isis, handing the money to Acel, who confidently promises she'll win without a doubt. The following morning, Kyuma busies himself reading the prison records to gather every bit of information he can about Acel. While scanning through the data, he learns that she has an impressive record of 11 victories and only 2 losses, both against S-rank opponents. But in the middle of his reading, Panya suddenly pops up, offering to pimp him again. Reasoning that he is going to need some cash if he really wants to get good intel on Acel, Kyuma agrees to be her toy boy. So Panya takes him to an empty room inside the prison facility, where Kyuma nearly has a heart attack when he sees that the chick he is supposed to smash is Great Kali's sister. When he asks if she's some kind of alien, the giant earthy baddie introduces herself as Urfa and insists she's human. She then explains that she heard about his Excalibur from Litang, who shares a cell with her. When Kyuma asks if she also needs his deep service, Urfa freaks out and clarifies that isn't why she called him. Instead, she says she wants to know if one of the prisoners under his watch is scheduled to face Acel. When Kyuma confirms it, Urfa promises to give him all the information he wants, but only if he also promises to send the conniving hag flying. When Kyuma asks her to explain what she means by this, Urfa sadly admits that she once lost to Asel. She explains that at the time, she saw her upcoming match as a prime opportunity to level up her rating. Since Asel is an illusion user, Urfa was confident she would win, because she had grown up among beasts skilled in deception and sneak attacks. But the day before the match, Asel appeared with an innocent smile and calmly introduced herself to Urfa in the arena. When Urfa asked if she had come to fight, Asel smirked and claimed she only wanted to give Urfa a chance to beat her. She explained that she was tired of winning and wanted to avoid constantly facing S-rankers. However, Urfa immediately doubted her motives and reminded her match fixing was illegal. But to make Urfa believe her act, Asel hands her a candy, claiming she'll sell it cheap just to seal the deal. This trick was enough to deceive the big dummy, who collects the candy happy that now she would be happy to win so easily against an A-ranker. But on the day of the fight, Urfa saw an opening and immediately assumed Asel was giving her a go to win the fight quickly. But as she charged mid-air to take advantage, Asel countered immediately and slashed her throat. This ends the fight, and as Asel was declared the winner, Urfa realized that the tramp had tricked her like the big tall fool that she is. Back in the present, after listening to Urfa's tragic story, Kyuma warns her of the danger of match fixing, but when she apologizes, swearing never to do it again, he tells her not to worry and then thank her for the information on Asel. To help even more, Urfa also gives Kyuma a book containing all of Asel's sword skill and arts, and then begs him to make sure he beats Asel senseless. Kyuma happily collects the book, but quickly asks her to stop talking about Asel and get down to business. Meanwhile, in the arena, Asel meets Zaina and begins using her manipulation tactics. She tries to get into Zaina's head, claiming she knew her father and even studied swordsmanship under him. Asel praises Zaina's dad as an exceptional and kind fighter. She then starts praising Zaina's dad, saying he is an exceptional fighter and very kind. To further her manipulation, she claims she can't bring herself to fight the daughter of her former teacher and promises to create an opening for Zaina to win. Zaina seems to fall for her tactics, but deep down, Asel is determined not to let Zaina leave the arena alive. When it seems like Zaina has fallen for her tactics, Asel walks away, but deep down the witch is determined not to let Zaina leave the arena alive. Finally, weeks later, the D-Day arrives for Zaina and Asel to battle it out in the arena. As the fight begins, Asel immediately fakes an opening, hoping to trick Zaina into rushing for a win. However, she's shocked when Zaina sees through the deception and slices her arm instead. So when Asel cries out in pain, asking how Zaina figured it out, Zaina confidently replies that Kyuma, the prison guard, had warned her about all of Asel's manipulation tactics. Meanwhile, Kyuma watches the fight, impressed to see Zaina take the first strike. Still, he knows that while Asel is a skilled manipulator, she is also an expert fighter, and defeating her won't be easy. Back on the battlefield, Zaina takes advantage of Asel's injury to unleash her sword skill known as the Crescent Moon Slash. But Asel immediately counters it by activating her own ability known as the Sword Dance. When Zaina sees another opening and attacks, she realizes it's just an illusion, while the real Asel uses this opportunity to slash her wrist. Still, Zaina refuses to give up and continues to attack. Seeing how determined Zaina is to win the fight, Asel employs another of her manipulation tactics, and this time, she suddenly transforms into Zaina's dead father. Zaina is shocked to see her father in front of her. But knowing it's one of Asel's silly tricks, Zaina charges, ready to land a strike. But when she comes face to face with her father's illusion, she hesitates, giving Asel the perfect opportunity to slice her arm. Seeing this, Kyuma panics and shouts Zaina's name from the sidelines. So while the rest of the audience praises Asel's exceptional deceptive abilities, Zaina swears to never lose to a coward like her. But Asel promises to devour her and turn her into ragged clothes. So to make good on her promise, Asel immediately surrounds Zaina with multiple clones of herself. When Zaina starts to tremble at the clones surrounding her, Kyuma begins cheering her on, praising her exceptional sword skills. His praises and support somehow fuels Zaina resolves to win the fight, so she unleashes her ultimate sword skill known as the Indigo Full Moon Slash. This circular slash cuts through all the clones, and even the real Asel, sending her crashing to the ground, wounded and defeated. As the fight comes to an end, Xina thanks Kyuma for his support. Her victory surprises everyone, though the three S-rankers of the prison, Darren the Mummy Milker, Saria, and Mudo, watching from above remain unimpressed and feels Xina is just another lucky loser. Meanwhile, Acel, still lying on the ground, cannot believe she was bested by a lowly A-ranker. But when she sees Xina celebrating with Kyuma, she resolves to snatch Kyuma from her as a form of revenge. When Acel was little, she had always watched her good-for-nothing father take money from her mother. Her only wish those miserable days was for her father to love her mother, but that never happened. Instead, her useless father continues to take the money her mother made from whoring herself. Growing up, Acel swore she would never be a tragic loser like her mother. To prevent that, she began deceiving old, lonely rich men and scamming them out of their gratuities. Even after being caught and imprisoned, she managed to build a strong reputation in the prison thanks to her manipulation skills. But back in the present, Isis lets Acel know that she is disappointed in her. So as a result of her failure to unalive Xina, Isis terminates the symbiotic relationship they share and warns Acel never to contact her again. So after the meeting with Isis, Acel heads back to her cell, only to bump into Carrot, who calls her a loser and starts mocking her for losing her battle with Xina. This only adds more salt to Acel's already injured ego, so now she is even more determined to get her pound of flesh. To put her evil plan into motion, Acel takes a detour and goes to the arena where Xina is training to spy on her. The moment she spots Kyuma, she resolves to deal with Xina by snatching her devoted fanboy and ultimate supporter, by using him and then dump him like trash. So later that day, Acel summons Kyuma for a private meeting, where she innocently asks if they can talk in his room. But Kyuma suspects she is up to something, so he warns her not to plot anything against the prison guard and threatens to punish her if she does. However, Acel claims she is innocent, explaining she only wants to talk with him since men are scarce in the prison. Seeing no immediate harm, Kyuma agrees but insists he must clean his messy room first. Shortly afterwards, Kyuma takes Acel to his room, where Acel immediately starts seducing him. She tells him he is handsome and then asks that he goes out with her. But before Kyuma can respond, the seductress pounces on him and then starts kissing him aggressively. She promises to make him feel good with her mouth and immediately starts deep-throating the rod. After the tongue service, Kyuma knocks out. So believing she has him right where she wants, Acel prepares to execute her plan. But suddenly, Kyuma transforms into his Kraken form and grips her tightly with his tentacles. To her surprise, the Kusa brothers also appear, and Kyuma explains that he was able to resist her manipulation using their help. But on the way, Panya rushes to meet him, and then delivers a shocking news that his client had suffered some critical injuries after fighting Mudo, the S-ranker, in the arena. When Kyuma asks if she will be okay, Panya grimly tells him she probably won't be able to move for a while. By the following morning, after working her all night, he returns to his guard duties to inform Mariam and Polina that they have visitors. When the girls leave, he and Xina finally have some time alone. So he informs her that her next match will be against the S-ranker Mudo. When he also points out that Xina shockingly has some kind of history with Mudo, Xina confirms she does, saying she never expected to face her so soon. Xina explains that Mudo's dad used to be the Queendom's martial arts instructor and a very good friend of her own father. Because of that, she and Mudo used to be friends when they were younger. Mudo was her senior, and Xina respected her deeply. But tragedy struck when Mudo's father suffered an embarrassing defeat in a friendly match against a foreigner. Because of this humiliation, he took his own life and was stripped of his title. Still, Mudo didn't stop training and pushed even harder to prove she would be a worthy successor. But one day, out of nowhere, her people decided to marry her off to some idiot. When she resisted and insisted she wanted to be like her dad, one guttermouth noble insulted her, calling her father a weak fighter who bribed his way into being martial arts instructor. That pushed Mudo over the edge, and she sliced the noble into two like an onion. So because she murdered royalty, Mudo was sent to prison. But ever since she arrived, Xina says Mudo has never lost a match and has even won the annual Queen's Cup in a row. Xina also adds that Mudo is a necromancer whose skill is to create a familiar. With all this scary information about Mudo, Kyuma asks Zaina if she is truly sure she can fight such a girl. Zaina replies, reminding him that she is the daughter of the Sword Saints, so she understands what it means for someone to fight with all of their might. When the day of the match between Zaina and Muto finally arrives, Zaina reassures Kyuma that her body is in great shape and says all she wants is for him to watch her. But just as they prepare to head to the arena, the Griffin Man suddenly appears, informing Kyuma that he is ready for their rematch and will be waiting for him at the farm outskirts. After saying this, the Griffin Man flies to the venue of the fight, while Kyuma immediately releases the three Kusa brothers from their tubes. He tells them that the bird guy showed up, and since it is an emergency, he wants them to watch over Zaina while he goes to fight the bird menace. When Saukaku points out that it might be a trap and advises Kyuma to postpone the rematch, Kyuma reminds him that Isis had already warned him that the next time the bird man showed up, he must not fail to take him down. So he transforms into his Kraken form and jumps out the window, heading straight to the outskirts. Meanwhile, Zaina is worried about his safety, but the Kusa brothers assure her that Kyuma will be fine. This brings back her confidence, so she heads to the arena to battle Muto, while Kyuma arrives at the farm outskirts to face the Griffin Man. As the Bird Man starts bragging about beating Kyuma to a pulp, Kyuma wastes no time chit-chatting and immediately launches an attack. However, the bird is confident Kyuma is still as weak as last time, but Kyuma surprises him with a powerful punch that sends him flying and bleeding from his beak. At that moment, the Griffin Man finally sees that Kyuma has mastered the essence of combat and is not the weakling he once fought. At the same time, in the arena, the expectant crowd is buzzing, so Muto immediately suggests they get down to business. Zaina agrees, and with that, the match begins with Zaina charging at Muto. But Muto immediately activates her necromancy ability by summoning winged vipers. When Zaina effortlessly slices through the vipers, Muto summons dead wolves. Watching from the sidelines, even the Kusa brothers are impressed with Muto's ability to summon multiple powerful familiars. As if that is not enough, Muto also summons the Salamandra fire-breathing dragon to roast Zaina alive. But Zaina is the least scared, as she immediately unleashes her powerful sword skill that instantly slashes through everything in her path. This move takes out all of Muto's familiars, but Muto summons her strongest familiar known as Basti to repel the attack from touching her. Together, Muto and Basti launch an attack against Zaina, but Zaina figures she should be more wary of Muto rather than her familiar. However, that results in a grave mistake, because Basti uses the opportunity to deliver a powerful jab to her chest. In this desperate second, Zaina glances to the sideline where Kyuma always stands to cheer her on during her matches and wishes he was there right now. But as she struggles to keep her balance, Muto walks up to her, ready to finish the battle once and for all. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of the farm, Kyuma and the Griffin Man are still going at each other. But this time Kyuma is more confident that he can finally hit back, unlike last time when he struggled. He can also see that the Birdman is not as fast with his attacks as before, which is because of the damage he suffered from the earlier punch. With the fight now looking like an easy win, Kyuma decides it would be best to beat the worthless loser quickly so he can return to the arena to cheer for Zaina. But as he starts overwhelming the Griffin, a bunch of female inmates unexpectedly show up at the farm, and on seeing the Griffin, they pick up weapons and start chasing him. Noticing the incoming enraged girls, the Griffin Man sees this as an opportunity to escape, so he immediately takes to the sky, promising they will settle things another time, somewhere no one will disturb them. As the Birdman flies away, Kyuma is pissed that the weakling managed to escape again. But when he hears a scream coming from the arena, he immediately rushes to see what is happening. However, when he gets back to the prison, he is shocked to see Zaina wounded and bedridden. When he demands to know what happened, the nurses sadly inform him that Zaina took a hit to her vital spots, but fortunately she is resilient and is fighting for her life. Just then, one of the nurses reminds Kyuma that Litang also suffered a similar injury, but survived by some miracle. This triggers Kyuma to remember that both Litang and Zaina had drank his squid extract, and assumes it must be his slimy juice keeping them alive. However, when he asks the nurse about Zaina's current condition, the nurse informs him that Zaina has used up all her strength to recover and is currently lacking the nutrients she needs to survive. Upon hearing this, Kyoma figures he needs to get Zaina back on her feet as soon as possible. So he meets Isis, who is pissed at him for letting the Griffin man escape. But she eases up and warns him to make sure he takes down the bird next time. Kyoma hurriedly agrees, but then he explains the real reason he came. He tells Isis about Zaina's critical condition and requests permission to get the liver of the demon anglerfish, known to be full of nutrients that lives in the water close to the prison. But Isis refuses at first, explaining that the demon anglerfish is the beast that protects the prison from intruders. However, as Kyoma pleads for an exception so he can hunt it, Isis ponders briefly and then allows him. But then she makes it clear that he owes her big time. Later that day, Asel, realizing that Zaina is badly injured and bedridden, decides to use this opportunity to manipulate Kyoma's heart and make him fall in love with her. So she visits him in his room, offering to comfort him. Kyoma instantly ditches her like a top G and walks out of the room. This makes Asel embarrassed, but desperate to get Kyoma by all means, she rushes after him begging to do anything he wants her to do. Hearing her say she will do anything makes Kyoma excited, so the cold gangster wraps his tentacles around her and uses her as bait to catch the demon anglerfish. Asel screams in fear, but Kyoma mercilessly drops her inside the ocean. As expected, her presence attracts the demon fish, but before it can snack on her, Kyoma charges after the fish and eventually eliminates it. As he takes the massive dead fish back to the prison, he sees Muto and her slave Basti already waiting for him. When he demands to know why they are there, Muto offers to help with Zaina's recovery. But when Kyoma reminds her that she is responsible for putting Zaina in the tragic condition she is currently in, Muto tells him that it was the result of an all-out battle. But since the match is over, Muto says she will do anything to help Zaina recover, because Zaina is like a younger sister to her. Kyoma finally agrees, so Basti offers to prep the demon fish he just caught and make a liver dish. After the dish has been made, Kyoma later feeds it to Zaina, and the moment she takes a bite of the liver, her eyes instantly open, and she starts feeling her entire body rejuvenating. But then she freaks out when she realizes she is wearing only her undies. Sensing the awkward situation, Kyoma insists on leaving, so Muto offers to stay and take care of Zaina in his absence. But just as Kyoma walks out the door, he realizes that as a guard he has limited access and fewer options to protect Zaina. Since the chief jailer and warden have a whole lot more access and benefits at their disposal, Kyoma declares that his next goal is to become the chief jailer. So to achieve this goal, Kyoma invites Gasson, the senior chief jailer, to his room for a drink. While they drink, Kyoma tells Gasson that he desperately wants to be promoted to a chief jailer. At first, Gasson is taken aback at his ambition. But after he relaxes, he explains to Kyoma that if he really wants to get such a promotion, then he needs to make Isis one of his slaves and the whole prison will be at his mercy. When Kyoma exclaims that it's unbelievable, Gasson tells him he is not yet ready. Gasson goes on to explain that he needs to get rid of the Birdman that the warden had asked him to before asking for a promotion. Also, Gasson lets him know that as chief jailer he would have to be responsible for many prisoners, but right now, he has no control over the 9th jail he is in charge of. As a piece of advice, Gasson tells Kyoma not to be hasty, but to get his footing first and then leaves. Meanwhile, Muto and Zaina enjoy the hot spring in Muto's private room. This is one of the privileges a prisoner enjoys for being a S-ranker. But even with the enjoyment, anytime Zaina looks at the wound she suffered in her last defeat, she remembers Kyoma, and this makes her feel that she is becoming too weak and dependent on him. So to stop feeling this way, Zaina decides not to get attached to Kyoma anymore. So after the hot spring bath at Muto's crib, Zaina heads back to her cell, but on the way she bumps into Kyoma. So before Kyoma can even ask how she is feeling, Zaina takes off running, while yelling at him to leave her alone. Kyoma is surprised at first, but he brushes off her childish behavior and decides to check on the other prisoners. However, when he gets to the girl's cell, he finds Polina and Mariam arguing, almost at the verge of throwing hands. This proves to Kyoma that what Gasson initially said about him not being able to manage his own jail is true. So to resume control, Kyoma decides to punish the girls and immediately orders each of them to come to his room one after the other. Polina is the first to enter his room, But before Kyuma will start scolding her, Polina notices dandruffs on his hair and insists she gives him a wash. When it's Mariam's turn, Kyuma first of all gives her his slimy cream to suck in order to calm her nerves. Later that day, when Kyuma checks their cell, he realizes that his little punishment worked and the girls are now more obedient. But just then, Panya rushes to meet him, and when Kyuma asks if she has a client for him, she says no, and then reveals that Isis wants him to go to the underwater punishment chamber. This is a place where hard prisoners that breaks rules are sent to be punished, and it's located at the very bottom of the sea floor. What exactly is awaiting Kyuma at this underwater punishment chamber? Comment, I want to have PLOTS like KUUMA if you're hyped to see what happens next in part 2. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, as always.